I want to just let things kind of flow in a direction that feels right for our guests, that feels right for us. And I think it will lead us to a better episode. So that's what I'm kind of excited about, more conversational episodes in the future. This podcast is brought to you by Hey Taco, the only peer-to-peer recognition platform that uses tacos to help teams around the world share gratitude. I'm Doug.
I'm Una.
This is our podcast, Amazing Teams.
Doug, welcome to the Amazing Teams podcast. How are you today?
I'm good, Una. Thanks for having me.
No, thank you. Okay, it's been almost a year since we launched this podcast. We started in September of 2023 with Daniel Todd from Influence Mobile. So far, we've interviewed 15 people, entrepreneurs, founders, coaches, team leads, leaders in all areas of life. How has season 1 been for you? What are some thoughts that come to mind when you remember all those 15 conversations we had?
I forget some of the amazing people we've had on the podcast. And so I went through our list of all 15 people. Actually, I think there was additional people on a few episodes. So it's a little bit more than 15 people.
True.
And some of them, I was like, oh yeah, I remember that conversation, how great that was. And so, our intention in the beginning was to learn how others are building amazing teams. And I think we listened to a lot of great stories, and I've personally took some good tactical information from some of our guests, and we've even played some games, which were really fun. And I guess the one thing that I took away from season 1 is that there's no one way to build an amazing team. Everyone has a different way, and each way is unique and special. And so it's really hard to craft a recipe for creating an amazing team. And that's the big thing that I've taken away.
I was thinking about what is an amazing team? Can you even define it? And what I landed on is that it's a lot easier to say what an amazing team isn't.
Yes.
What are the things that people do that do not for sure make an amazing team? One of the things that stood out to me is that a lot of our speakers talked about similar topics, the importance of trust and relationships and empathy. And someone might listen to all those conversations, me, for example, and say, well, I already know that, right? I already know that empathy is important. So one thing I took away is it's not about knowing a thing. We all know how to lose weight. It's about doing a thing. It's really hard to be empathetic when you're pissed. It's really hard to build trust when you're thousands of miles away talking on a Zoom call all the time. It's really hard to do those things day in and day out to actually build an amazing team.
You're absolutely right. We all know how to do these things like losing weight or building an amazing team, but it's really about keeping it top of mind. And so what I hope is that our podcast kind of helps people keep these things top of mind. So if someone is interested in bettering their team, well, they'll tune in and listen to us and listen to our guests, and it'll keep it top of mind. And so you're absolutely right about that.
Is there one thing that you took away and started doing from all those conversations?
The one thing that always came up, and I always tune into it when I hear it mentioned, and that's empathy. And that seemed to kind of flow through every podcast episode, at least many of them. And it's something that I tend to think that I have a pretty good amount of empathy, and I go through life thinking about others and feeling for others. And so for me, just hearing others talk about empathy is just a reminder to me that yes, empathy matters. And not only does it matter at home, but it matters in the workplace. And I think it's probably the word of this season, empathy.
That's funny. I haven't experienced you to be that empathetic in our work together, Doug. I'm just kidding.
Oh my goodness.
I'm just teasing you. I told James and Ara, I said, my worst nightmare is that Doug and I are here talking to people about amazing teams, interviewing them, and then we don't have an amazing team. What a terrible way that would be for us to live. So I hope that we get to take away all these awesome things and practice them. And we'll fail. We do fail. But as long as we notice it and come back and correct that.
Yeah. And you bring up something amazing in itself. And that is when we started this podcast, it was just you and I. And since the beginning, we've added to people to our team. So
Doubled in size.
yeah, we doubled in size, which is huge, right? And so this has been super helpful, at least for me, to have done the podcast and had these conversations, because it gets me thinking. It keeps top of mind for me when we're doing activities like we did yesterday, the improv exercises and stuff like that. And it really kind of helps connect the dots for me.
Okay, this is a personal question then. You were teamless for 7 years, pretty much.
Yeah.
Right? A person here and there. What has been the biggest change for you having a team now of 4 people, 5 sometimes, depending on how you count?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, now I'm not only worrying about myself, I'm worrying about 3 others. Constantly am thinking about, okay, is Una, is James, is Ira, are they happy with the work they're doing? Do they think I'm crazy? Or, I'm always wondering, I'm always wondering what you guys are thinking, especially when I'm giving feedback or I'm working on more of a one-on-one kind of situation. I'm always curious about the wave that I'm creating behind me. And I think that touches into empathy. I'm curious about the feelings, and it matters to me if you guys are having fun. And so going from just me running a business to the 4 of us running this business has been a huge adjustment. But having these conversations with these people, talking about what they're doing, what they've done, and even hearing some of the stories of how some of them have gone from 1 or 2 to teams of 30 and 40. It's helped me in a big way.
I also like talking to people who are not necessarily running businesses, right? Great teams exist everywhere, whether you're in a hospital setting or you're a teacher or you're a coach. So a lot of the things we learned, for example, from Liz and Malia, were in a different setting than business and what you and I find ourselves in, and a lot of our listeners, but they're very transferable.
Mm-hmm.
Right? These are habits and skills that exist whether you're working with someone or building a family or just building a pickleball league in your neighborhood. It doesn't really matter. A lot of these skills and habits are transferable.
Yeah, that's right. I really loved our episode with Liz Hoffreiter. I mean, she inspired me. After we recorded that morning, the rest of that day, I was so inspired to just do amazing things. And the great thing about her is she's an educator. She's not a CEO or a coach. She's an educator in a classroom, changing kids' lives. And she kind of changed my life after meeting her, having the conversation with her, and just letting, that all kind of sink in and think about what we talked about on that episode.
What has been really helpful as we started working, you and I, and then 2 other people, is what Chris Coffey said about getting to small wins as a team helps build cohesion. I always thought about team building as like great onboarding and yada, yada, yada. And sometimes it's like just do something awesome together in the first week, and getting to that quick win can really help build the confidence of we got this together, right? As an individual, it's great to accomplish a task, but then the 4 of us, let's go do this for a week, and then we get it done and everyone feels great. You're like, okay, this team is solid. It's on a good track. I really enjoyed that. I was like, that was a really good tip that I think we took away right away.
Yeah, I agree with you. Chris was great. He came in, he's a team lead. I really loved his working with me, I guess, guidebook for people joining his team. He has this like manifesto of what it's like to work with Chris Coffey. I thought that was super creative. It's something that really inspired me. Kind of got me thinking like, wow, that could be helpful for our team if right up front, they could read something and understand who I am. But I've also found that our little fireside chats are a good way to do that as well.
For those who might not know, because this is clearly an inside joke, fireside chats usually happen in the gazebo outside of our co-working space, where Doug gets to share stories in his grandpa Doug identity, stories from the early days of Hey Taco, or stories that has shaped Hey Taco even before Hey Taco was ever an idea. Fireside chats, they're really good.
Thank you.
Anything else on season 1 that comes to mind? What do you think?
Our first episode that we recorded with Daniel Todd, I thought that was a really great episode. He's kind of like he was like a superhero, right? Like when we had that call with him and recorded our episode, everything he said, I was just like, yes, tell me more, teach me, master. And he was super inspiring to me. And so thank you, Daniel Todd, if you're listening, for being our first guest on the Amazing Teams podcast.
You know what was great? His whole team is awesome. I had the the opportunity to join them in Vegas for their offsite and give a little talk about teams and what we're learning from this podcast. And everyone there was stellar. And it's just so nice. They would come up to me, make sure I have everything I need. And they would give us feature feedback, which was awesome. I really enjoyed learning from them about what they're liking about Hey Taco, what they're not. So the whole team is just a reflection of his leadership and guidance.
Yeah, I thought I could tell he was a great leader and that people really loved working with him.
You know, when you think about law firms, you don't necessarily think about great culture. Like, it's not the first thing that comes to mind when you think about a law firm. You think about high achievers, a lot of individual work, a lot of long hours, and getting stuff done. But when we talk to Michael and Mary, it made me want to be a lawyer.
Oh, yeah.
Just to work with them, no one else. I thought, This is a great team. They really have something figured out. And how they do it remotely, from their interview tactics, where they do the group text message, to just how they are every single day. I almost had a thought of, man, I'd work with Mary and Michael.
Yeah, definitely some good tactical ideas for hiring. If anyone is hiring, listening to that episode, I think will feed some great ideas for the hiring process.
Another thing that a lot of people talked about that was really useful was how they build team connection in a remote environment. So for example, the Revel team and Jason Piasecki, when they did the 24-hour giving marathon and they helped a local nonprofit with the whole marketing plan and a new website and everything. Sometimes we think about team building as, let's go do a happy hour, or let's join online and play a virtual team building game. And what actually builds a team is doing stuff together, right? Doing your work together, maybe in a different scenario, but actually enjoying time together that's not just leisurely. And it sounded like that really helped his team just connect on a different level and share a really unique experience of staying up for 24 hours, doing work pro bono to help someone in their local community. So that definitely was a different perspective on building a team that I never really considered. I always hear team building and I think about virtual cooking class, but there's so much more to team building than just enjoying the fun stuff together.
That's a great point. Yeah, Jason definitely doing some fun and unusual things there at Revel.
All right, Doug, as we think about season 2, it's fun to think about seasons. So they have a start and an end and a point. What are you most excited about in season 2?
I think for season 2, I'm excited to continue learning more about our guests and how they're building teams. We are very focused on tactics in season 1. I think season 2, I want to delve more into the conversation, and rather than try to dig up tactical information, I want to just let things kind of flow in a direction that feels right for our guests, that feels right for us. And I think it will lead us to a better episode. So that's what I'm kind of excited about, more conversational episodes in the future.
In season 2, we have slated a lot more topic-based conversations, right? Less about the person and how they built their team, but getting subject matter experts in their area into a conversation about anything from compensation and how to think about compensation strategy. How does that build a team? To the importance of mentorship and how do you actually do mentorship in organizations ranging from 5 people to 500 people? And then how do you actually live your values? Like, people talk about values, they're important, yada, yada, yada. But the proof is in the pudding. How do you actually do it every single day? And we'll have a few people talk about what are their traditions and practices and habits to actually live their values as they grow to 200, 300, 400 people. So I'm excited to delve into how do you do it? How do you build that habit? Right? And okay, empathy. How do you live empathy? Values. Okay, how do you do that? So I think it'll be some fun conversations deep into the topics that maybe don't come to mind when you think of a team building, like compensation. Mm-hmm. Doesn't sound like the most interesting topic about team building, but unless you have that figured out, people will not feel appreciated. They will not feel valued. They might feel like the leaders of the company haven't thought it through. So a lot of those things are not the small, but the big things are important in building a team.
Absolutely. Your biggest takeaway from season 1?
My biggest takeaway, it's definitely about knowing is one thing, doing is the other thing. And the hard thing is doing. It's especially when you're remote and you're away from people, it's easier to share feedback with someone in the moment. But when you have to schedule a call and go out of the way and find time on the calendar to share feedback, there's so much friction to do the right thing that we often just give up and think it's not important. So it's definitely about the doing piece. Like, how do you do certain things? How do you know what to do? And then how do you build habits to do the right thing every single day? A few smaller things. I really enjoyed Liz's line about how we're all 9-year-old at heart.
That was good.
I think it helps us understand that we all have, beyond the armor that we have on in terms of adult bodies, there's so many little things behind it in terms of needs and wants and insecurities. Everyone's working on something. So just understanding that and putting yourself in the other person's shoes is so important when you think about it. How do you live empathy, right? Or what do you do every single day? It's like, well, when you're having conflict with someone, trying to understand what are they taking care of? What is it like in their shoes? So I thought that was a really simple way to remember to be empathetic by understanding, yeah, we're all 9. And you know what 9-year-olds are like. They all need tender love and care and want to belong and want to be invited and all those little things. And then another one I really liked, maybe because I'm a John Wooden fan, is when Malia shared about how to give grounded feedback in the sense of agree on mutual expectations when someone joins a team, whether you're joining a volleyball team or a business team, and then share feedback that is centered around that. It's not personal. It's about what we agreed that we're going to do together, right? You said you were going to do this. It was part of our mutual understanding, and then didn't happen. How do we talk about that as a thing in the middle versus you suck as a result of not having done something?
Our recording with Malia was great. It was episode 10, another one where I was just like, I feel so inspired just by the things she said. She's such an eloquent speaker, very inspiring. I think that we should follow suit with our episodes. In every episode at the end, we share gratitude. And so
Going forward or today?
Right now. And
Okay.
so I want to give you, Una, my 5 tacos.
All 5?
All 5.
Wow.
For being a tremendous co-host, but also the fact that English is your second language. And here you are recording podcasts, having conversations in English, just blows my mind every time. So kudos to you. You get all 5 my tacos for being a great co-host and just doing a tremendous job in season 1. And thank you.
Thank you, Doug. I forget that English is my second language sometimes. I know what was funny. I'll tell you a story. Someone reached out about Hey Taco from Croatia, and I recognized their name and the company and stuff like that. And then we switched emails to Croatian. And she said, I guess we can speak Croatian since you're Croatian. And I almost thought to myself, I don't know if I can do that because I've never done business in Croatian. I've always done business in English. And every niche has its own vocabulary in a sense, but I managed through it. I didn't even have to use Google Translate to translate back to my native tongue. But thank you. 5 tacos. Okay. Gotta think about this one. It's gotta be, meaty taco. I can't give you all my 5 because then it'll be like I'm just doing what you did. So, I'm thinking about the tacos. Okay. I'm gonna give you my first 3. And the reason is I appreciate you being open to crazy ideas like a podcast and other things that we get to work on together. And that I asked you, like, Doug, can you just build this? And you just give me great feedback and trust me to try things out. And, before you and I met, I was doing my own consulting work and I was very bored. I like being part of a team. I didn't play tennis on purpose. I played volleyball because it's a lot more fun for me to be with people. And I really enjoy working with you as part of a team. I think we complement each other well and we have good alignment. So 3 tacos for you for taking a call from a random stranger online to chat. And look at us, a year and a half later, here we are. So I appreciate that. And then my 2 tacos actually go to my mother. My mother is a handball coach and she used to play handball professionally when she was young, European handball. She coaches boys age 7 to 12. And she is an amazing coach. So whenever I have questions about how do I do this when it comes to team stuff or personal stuff, I'll call her and I'll ask her. I'll sometimes just ask myself, what would she do? Because she's so masterful in how she works with people with such high integrity and really being herself. You can really, really trust her. And sometimes she'll tell you the ugly truth you might not want to hear, but you'll feel like it's coming with so much love from her. I've always admired how she does it. Not always. I guess when I became a little bit older as a child, I didn't really appreciate it. But now I do. And she's been a really good mentor and coach without even knowing it. So she gets 2 tacos.
I love that. Una, what if somebody's listening right now to this podcast and they're so confused and wondering, what are they talking about? Tacos. What would you say to them?
Tacos are the greatest thing since sliced bread. I'm just kidding. But for those listening, wondering what the hell is Hey Taco and who are these 2 people? Hey Taco is a peer-to-peer recognition platform where teams around the world get to share gratitude with each other by attaching a digital taco emoji to their messages of gratitude. And then Hey Taco takes you from there and makes that habit fun and stick and meaningful, where we track the tacos and you can level up and you can redeem tacos for fun rewards. And we just make gratitude fun for people because gratitude is important. And sometimes we forget that. It feels silly, it feels touchy-feely, like why does it matter? But it feels really good to get a taco, as evidenced by our conversation right now. I mean, every time I get a taco on our team, I'm like, ooh, a little pep in my step.
That was fantastic. Much better than I could have explained it. So thank you. But I think it reinforces the thought and the idea that gratitude is very important for building amazing teams.
It's definitely not the only thing. As we learned from our guests, there's so many things that go into building an amazing team. But gratitude is a part of it and is a really important part of it. And then the rest of the stuff is what our guests talked about, are the topics we're going to cover in season 2 and hopefully help our listeners who are parts of teams or leading teams just get better, get insights, get ideas on how they can build their amazing team, whatever it is.
Love it.
All right, you ready for season 2?
I'm ready.
Awesome. Let's go. Thanks for listening. One of the important things about building a team is gratitude. If you're looking to add more gratitude into your team, check out heytaco.com. We are clearly biased, but it really does work. Use the code AMAZINGTEAMS to receive 15% off for the first 3 months of your subscription.